all. I'm Dr. Shweta Santhalia, the course director and mentor at aimmrcog. And today I'm here to discuss with you all the recent Mbrrace report, because as the exam is nearing, it's very important for you to go through the salient feature of Mbrrace, because that is something always asked in the exam, the common questions in exam. So it will surely help you in gaining some extra marks in exam. So let's start. So Mbrrace UK is Saving Lives, Improving Mothers' Care. It's maternal, newborn and infant clinical outcome review program. It is the lesson learned from the maternity care in the UK and Ireland confidential inquiry into maternal death and morbidity 2018 to 20. So this is the compilation of these 2 years. So definitely it includes the 1 year of COVID as well. So uh, it definitely more than the previous report because of the contributory factor of COVID, as well as they have found that even when the COVID deaths has been removed, there is a trend of rise in the maternal death, which we will be discussing in the coming slides. So what are the key points? It's very important for us to understand that where the trend is going. So there are significantly increase in the maternal death rate, but it is not statistically significant. So statistically non-significant increase in overall maternal death rate between 2015 to 17 and 18 to 20. So this is usually it's a triennial report. So earlier report was 15, 16, 17. Now this is 18, 20, 20 18, 19 and 20. So it shows that there is statistically non-significant increase in overall maternal death rate. An increase has occurred even when the COVID death has been excluded. So it's important for us to see where we are failing in giving the right care to the women and why we are failing and how we can improve that and decrease the death rate for the women's. So there remains a more than threefold difference in maternal mortality rate among UK from different ethnic origin. So they say that as earlier we all know from the antenatal guideline, NICE and different guidelines that BAME, the Black ethnic origin and Asian ethnic origin have the more chances of mortality and morbidity compared to the white population. So if you see the difference, there is threefold difference in the mortality rate for the Black women and twofold difference for the Asian ethnic origin. So this is very important for us to understand that with what rate it is more mortality for the Blacks and the Asian pregnant women. Then they say that there is 11% of the women who died during or up to a year after pregnancy were at severe and multiple disadvantages. So sometimes the complex social factor and many other factors of living can affect the outcome. So they say that 11% of the women who died had severe and multiple disadvantages, which contributed to their death. If we talk about psychiatric disorder and cardiovascular disorder, which are the main highlights, if you see together, these two causes represent 30% of the maternal death, which is quite significant. 30% of the maternal death solely cardiac and psychiatric disorder. So we have to mainly focus on this aspect. That's why the epilepsy guideline is important. Cardiac diseases are always important. Cardiomyopathy is important. There is a YouTube recording for that if anyone want to go through that. Then there is a recent talk about valvular disease and how to change the anticoagulants. So these all are important from exam point of view as well, because these are the main contributory factor in the maternal death. During 2020, they say that the maternal mortality directly attributable to COVID-19 was comparable to what happened with psychiatric and cardiovascular disorder. So if you see, it's significantly contributing, these two solely contributing to 30% of maternal death. There are a statistically significant increase in death rate from direct causes. So, though there is a statistically non-significant increase in overall death, but there is a statistically significant increase from direct causes. So, as we go through the further slides, you will get to know how direct, indirect, and total maternal death are different. So, direct has been statistically significant increase. So, we have to think about how to decrease these direct deaths because it's statistically significant. So, out of direct death, thrombosis and thromboembolism is the leading cause. Uh, so, we have to, these guidelines are always important for exam point of view. Now, if we talk about mental health issues, as we all know that suicide has become a direct cause now. So they say that suicide and substance abuse account for nearly 40% of the death occurring within a year after the end of pregnancy. So within a year, when they ask you about the most common cause of death, it is the suicide. It is the direct cause, which is suicide. Suicide and substance abuse are quite contributory factor for the first year, within first year of end of pregnancy death. So we should keep that in mind. They always ask you about most common cause, most common cause of death, then most common direct, most common indirect, most common in the 6 weeks to 1 year after pregnancy. So these are the most commonly asked question which you should remember. These are the theoretical question, as well as there could be number question, right? Like what's the percentage of death and things like that. So at least the simple things like what is the most common cause of all these, you can easily remember. And sometimes they simply ask you what are the direct causes, what are the indirect causes, which of the following is direct or indirect. So that theoretical questions are very easy to answer because that is same, that doesn't change, only the numbers change, which you should try to memorize for the new Mbrrace. So if you see this 3-year rolling average of direct and indirect maternal mortality rate per 100,000 maternity, if you see this total UK maternity, out of which how many direct, how many indirect, and how much total. So if you see the total deaths in 3-year period, it becomes for 18 to 20. They will always ask you the recent one. So 18 to 20, if you see, it's 9.5 to 12.4 per thousand maternity. So this is the maternal mortality rate per 100,000 maternities. If you see earlier, last triennial report, it was 7.5 to 10.12. So it has increased to 9.5 to 12.4. So it has increased, but it is not statistically significant. Now, if we talk about indirect, because out of total, indirect is more common than direct. So if you see indirect, it is 4.7 to 6.8. So it has also increased from 4.2 to 6.2 to 4.7 to 6.8, but this is not statistically significant. So these two has increased, but not statistically significant. But this has increased statistically significant, which is the direct death. So direct death last report was 2.8 to 4.4. Now it has become 4.2 to 6.2. So it's quite significant increase in the direct deaths, which you should remember, because they will ask you that what is the total death rate, or they will ask you, like if you see the total death rate, it is 10.9. If you see the indirect, out of which is 5.7, but direct has increased to 5.1 from 3.5. So this is what they ask you, that how much is total, how much is indirect, and how much is direct. So these are the three figure you have to remember: 10.9, 5.7, and 5.19. Now, if you see the report, triennial report, if you compared 18 to 20, these are the all list of direct and indirect. So sometimes the question is simply, which of the following is direct, which of the following is indirect, which of the following homicide is what, so it is coincidental, what is late deaths, so late deaths is 6 weeks postpartum to 1 year. So these kind of things they ask you, the theoretical question, which should be easy for you to answer. Now, if you see out of which the most common, out of the direct death, the most common is 0.92, which is thrombosis and thromboembolism. So they ask you most common direct maternal mortality death, it become thrombosis and thromboembolism. Then they ask you what is the most common indirect maternal mortality death reason. So that becomes the cardiac disease, which is 1.12. If they ask you what is the most common overall, most common reason for death, then it becomes cardiac disease because though it is indirect, but this is the most common. This is more than thrombosis and thromboembolism, which is 0.92, and cardiac is 1.12. So overall, most common is cardiac. Most common indirect is cardiac. Most common direct is thromboembolism and thrombosis is what you have to remember. And the most common late deaths, which is 6 weeks to 1 year, is suicide, which is a nowadays direct cause. So these kind of question they ask you in exam. Now, they always ask you about in the cardiovascular death, which is the most common. So it has changed now. So you should remember that first is myocardial disease, cardiomyopathy. Myocardial disease and cardiomyopathy contributes to 25%. Then comes the ischemic death, which is 20%. And then comes the sudden arrhythmic cardiac death with a morphologically normal heart. So sudden arrhythmia for a normal heart, which is 18%. So remember this, cardiomyopathy followed by ischemia, followed by arrhythmia. So this is very important to remember because that's always a favorite question in exam. So if we see in the lay summary, the summary of Mbrrace, you will see that 229 women died during or up to 6 weeks after the end of pregnancy. 10.9 women per 100,000 giving birth, which is 24% higher than last year report. 9 women died from COVID-19. If we exclude the COVID-19 death also, then also the death is higher in this year compared to the previous uh, report. Black women are 3.7 times more likely to die. Asian women 1.8 times more likely to die. If you compare this to the previous report, earlier black women was 4 times and Asian women was 2 times. So there is a slight decrease in the death according to ethnicity, but still it is in the same range if you see comparable range. 3.7 for black women, 3.7 times, and 1.8 times for Asian women. Now 27 of their babies died, 366 motherless children remains. So this is very important to consider that if a mother died, the baby become motherless, which is quite detrimental for the baby. 1 in 9 women who died had severe and multiple disadvantages. As we discussed that 11% of the women had uh, severe multiple disadvantages. So this is what we have to look for and take care of the complex social factor. We saw that Black and Asian women are uh, more death rate, as well as the women who are living in deprived area has more death rate. If we talk about the women who died up till 1 year, 6 weeks to 1 year, there is a further 289 women. So 229 women up till 6 weeks and further 289 women between 6 weeks and 1 year died. So 13.8 women per 100,000. This is the late deaths, right? This is the late death. So it's 13.8 per 100,000 women compared to 10.9 per 100,000 women up till 6 weeks. So it's more. If you compare these, this is more. Most women died in the postnatal period, 86%, and 3 times more likely to die by suicide. So 1.5 women per 100,000 given birth died by suicide. So suicide is the most common cause for late deaths. Now, if we talk about deaths, it's very important for us to understand the ethnic difference, which, as I told you, it's marginally decreased, but still it is high. Then we should talk about preeclampsia, which is a direct cause, which they found that preeclampsia related death has increased compared to the previous report. So what we are missing in preeclampsia, since we know that preeclampsia is something which we always deal with in pregnant women, and we all know that how preeclampsia to be managed, but still we are seeing that there is a rising trend towards death from preeclampsia. So we have to look into it that where we are missing. Are we calculating the risk properly? Are we starting them on aspirin? So high risk factor for preeclampsia, the moderate and high risk factor is always important for exam. when to start aspirin, how to what dose of aspirin to be given. Now it is high dose, which is 150 milligram. Then you can continue it till delivery even, but you can consider stopping it at 37 weeks also. So these all questions are always common in exam. So preeclampsia is always an important topic, and because the death rate is rising, so again it become more important for you to know every aspect of preeclampsia and hypertension in pregnancy. So please go through that nice guideline for exam very, very well and remember it well. So 8 women died from preeclampsia. So if you see that becomes zero point 0.4 women per 100,000 giving birth. It is 4 times higher than the lowest rate of 12-14. So it's quite high. That's why it has increased from the previous reports. That's why if you are worried about preeclampsia, and you should know well about the risk factor, the red alerts of preeclampsia, and everything about preeclampsia is very, very important. Then comes the most common cause, which is our heart disease. So heart disease, the most important thing about heart disease management is the multidisciplinary care, the risk factor, doing the proper risk assessment, and then referring them to the right person, keeping the red flag alert in your mind so that you can detect them at time and treat them at time so that you can avoid the deaths. Because heart disease is the most common cause of death, as we saw, and most common indirect cause also, and most common overall cause also. So risk factor for heart disease, risk assessment is very, very important. Wheeze in an asthma patient, they saw a case report where the death was, she has a known asthma and there was wheeze, and then it became confusing that is the wheeze due to asthma or due to pulmonary edema. So wheeze can be due to pulmonary edema. It's a red flag sign. Keep that in mind. Raised respiratory rate, heart rate, chest pain, breathlessness, these are important. Now, if chest pain, the crushing pain going towards the back near between the scapula is something, could be due to uh, aortic aneurysm rupture. So this is also very important thing to understand, because there's always this get missed, and there is maternal death reported due to aortic dissection as well. So we should know that what kind of chest pain signify. Like if it is referring to the arm or jaw, it is most likely myocardial infarction. Sometimes it is going back to the scapula and severe pain, severe crushing or tearing pain, then it could be aortic dissection. So aortic dissection and MI is two very important thing for us to differentiate in chest pain. And this, and they saw that aortic dissection patient, nobody did X-ray for her, which might have been diagnosed that. So they did ECG and they tried to rule out everything, but they didn't think about aortic dissection. So aortic dissection and MI pain, you should be able to differentiate and diagnose. And always think about the risk factors like older age, smoking, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, family history of premature coronary disease. Like if somebody has a family history of somebody died due to heart problem less than 40 years of age or less than 50 years of age, then that become a significant family history. So you should evaluate her from heart point of view. Sometimes the women, they have written in the report that one woman told that she has a family history, and she told that she has been evaluated and she found to be normal, and what has been done for her is only ECG. So only ECG is not enough. We have to do 2D echo, we have to evaluate, we have to refer her to the cardiologist. This is what we have to do to rule out all the factor possible, because in pregnancy it's an add-on stress to the heart, and if we don't diagnose it properly, she might lose her life. So these are the risk factors for heart disease, which we should detect properly, and we should do a proper referral and multidisciplinary care for the women to avoid the mortality. Sometimes what happens that heart disease is there, but it is not diagnosed. So pregnancy gives us an opportunity to evaluate the women properly, to give her advice about everything about her health, not only in pregnancy, even the future health, because obesity is increasing, because the lifestyle factor is contributing an important role in the overall well-being. So this is the time we should educate them and detect all the high risk factors. So most of the time you'll find that heart disease was diagnosed first time in pregnancy. So this is something we should diagnose in the according to the risk factor as well as the examination. It gives us a window of opportunity to diagnose the heart problem for the women, which was undetected earlier. So any tachypnea, any tachycardia, evaluation of tachycardia and palpitation is very, very important in pregnancy, because not necessarily it could be physiological, but sometimes it could be related to the heart disease, like especially if it is associated with breathlessness, orthopnea, sudden awakening from the sleep because of breathlessness. So these are something which should alert you that it's most likely abnormal rather than physiological. So don't ignore any women complaining persistent palpitation. Don't always diagnose it as physiological change of pregnancy or anemia related. Always try to rule out other factor before rule out heart disease before labeling it as physiological is what we should take care. Any women coming to severe chest pain, you should evaluate properly. Any time if the palpitation is persistent, you should evaluate properly. Severely breathlessness, even when resting, you should evaluate. And any women who is fainting, any collapse while exercising or by any reasons, you should evaluate properly, because that are the red flags which could be due to heart disease. That's what the reason of death in morphologically normal heart. So heart disease is something which shouldn't miss in pregnancy. So that's all about the recent Mbrrace report summary, and then you can go through. It's a 107 pages, but only the boxes can be read if you want to read every detail of it. But these are the most important salient feature which you shouldn't miss from this recent Mbrrace and what has got changed. So I wanted to highlight that. Now, those who are preparing for January exam, the mega course is starting soon. So if you want to enroll for that, you can avail the early bird discount, and it also includes the free crash course. These are the course feature which has live session and coverage of all the recent talks, and you have mocks and you have EMQ sessions. So you have flashcards. All these boost your preparation and help you succeed in exam in first attempt. Now, the one who are going for uh, July exam, these are the link to join the free groups for Telegram and Facebook, as well as YouTube channel. Those who are going for July exam, if they want a boost in their preparation, they can join the recall course where they get the free biostatistics, last 3-year recall, last 3-year talk questions, and tips and tricks of SBA EMQ solving, 2 final mocks for practice, flashcard for revision. So it's a brush up where you can go through all the important topic at the end, which definitely improve your chance to succeed in the exam. The other could be the module plan. If you feel your 1 or 2 module is weak, you can avail this. You can go for mock series if you like. So good luck. I'm sure you all will do great. If anyone need any help or any suggestion, any comment, if you have any doubt, you can put in the comment section and I would be happy to answer that. Thank you so much for listening to this video. If you have any doubt about anything and I can help, I would be happy to help. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to get access to the recent recordings as soon as it get posted. Thank you so much. Have a good